All right, I'm gonna start working with Atlas in the round pen. So I'm gonna be using 2 whips while I do this in the round pen, and I wanna kind of focus on doing some maneuvers, doing some hooking on, and kind of working without positive reinforcement for a little bit. So I'm just going up to him and kind of making friends. So I'm kind of seeing where he's at, and he looked away a little bit a second ago. So he's like there, he's looking away. He's looking at something, and then he brings his attention back. So I don't think those are calming signals. I think he was just genuinely looking at something because of the placement of his ears. They both left, both of his eyes left, and then he'd flick an ear back to me. So I'm just kind of making friends here, kind of seeing where he's at. I don't like to get into the round pen and then immediately start sending him off. So he decided to leave me there. That's totally fine. I'm not going to be mad about that, but I am going to start working with him then since he decided to leave. But I like to just do, this is a turn and look at me. That's the first step that I'm going to do. So when he's in the round pen, I don't necessarily need to do a lot of chasing, especially with these guys. I don't want to do a ton of forward movement because then they'll think that's the only thing we're going to do. I want, can you look at me? Can you connect? That's what I want to use the round pen for. So that's what I want to work on first. And he's a bit distracted. I think he's a bit worried. He's trying to go out not go out, but he's going by the gate. He's grazing, but I think that's more of a stress grazing. So he's just very worried. He doesn't want to stand still. So that's what I want to work on first. So I'm just going to use that white whip toward his hindquarters to kind of push him right there. He faces me toward me right there, and I'll take a step back. So I'm going to have a lot of pauses where I'm just going to wait for him and sit like this and see he can only sit for a minute before he's like, oh, I think I need to go somewhere. I need to go somewhere else. And he just trots off on his own. So I'm not going to chase him or do anything scary to him. I don't want to punish him. As I've been watching the video back, something that I would change is I would just hold my whips up as he goes around so he has a little bit of pressure on him. He's not getting a release then while he decides to leave. But that's the one thing I would change. So this is something to think about as you watch the video. But I just asked for his hindquarters over, and he's looking at me, so I just want him to sit there and stay facing me. So I'm going to ask for the hindquarters. There he kind of comes over, and then he decides maybe he wants to leave. So this is very early stuff. So he doesn't spend a lot of time in the round pen. This is his first session in the round pen with me. So he doesn't typically spend time in here. I keep asking, but that white whip toward his hindquarters, he's just kind of ignoring me there. I think he stepped over slightly there. I'm going to go to the other side here. But I'm going to just go nice and slow with him. I don't want to punish him or be too quick with him. So there I'm going to have the black whip toward his hindquarters. Instead of yielding his hindquarters, he pretty much blocked me with his shoulder, but at least he's looking at me. So I'm going to go over to the other side. There he steps over. I'm going to step back. So he's a little bit worried. That's why he's going into the grazing a lot, and he wants to move off and trot around a little bit and stay by the gate. It's not at a high level of worry like you'd see with some horses who are just running around the pen, but he has more worry than I'd like. But this is his first time over there, and he usually lives in the pasture over to the right-hand side of the screen. So this is just some getting used to that he has to do. So I'm trying to push that shoulder over to my left, and he's just backing up instead of letting that whip get up next to his eye and push him over there. He's like, nope, I'm just going to go away. So I'm going to have him go forward here, and then I'm just going to ask him again. So I'm going to step in front of the drive line, and I want him to stop and then make that inside turn. And then I'll release him. My sticks go to the ground immediately. See, he'll look at me, and he's looking and chewing and head shaking. So these are all calming signals. He's relaxing a little bit, but he's doing that sideways step the whole time until he stopped and rested here. So he was still worried about the whole thing. So now I'm going to do 8 inside turns. So I'm not specifically doing, right now I'm going to do look at me, and then step 2, I'm going to do an inside turn. I started with one, and I'm going to kind of do these throughout the video, but I wanted to point out when I started asking for them. So like here, I have the whip up, and there he does that inside turn and comes over. That's why I put the text up there. So it was like, this is what the inside turn looks like, and there's him doing it. And then he trots off. I didn't ask him to trot off, and then goes to the gate because he wants to go back to his pasture and his buddy. So I'm just asking for another inside turn, and really I'm asking for the look at me still. But I want to have control of his body, and he doesn't draw very well at all. Some horses, you go in there, you kind of pressure them and step back, and they'll draw right to you. And which the goal will be with that for him once he understands this. But he doesn't do that at all. And so I'm kind of having to use the yielding the hindquarters and moving the shoulders to really help him, because he doesn't have a lot of draw. This is better. See, he's drawing in, and then he takes a couple sideways steps, so he's still a little worried about it. So this is really the first time he's done anything with me that doesn't involve food and positive reinforcement. So I decided I wanted to just try different things, because having these Mustangs is all an experience for me. An experiment is what I meant. So I wanted to play around with some things, see what works best, which I didn't like. There I stepped over and he moved over. That was good. I mean, a bit more reaction than I want, and he's looking out toward the gate and looking to where he wants to go. It's all right. I'm just kind of taking those as clues, and I'm just going to ask him, to stay and face me, and then he wants to leave. That's okay. But the whole thing is an experiment, so I'm just kind of playing around. I wanted to do some 2-whip work. Here's the yielding the hindquarters, which I mentioned before. There he's stepping underneath. There he steps underneath again. And I'd like that his head would be up and he's not grazing, but I wanted to point out when he was doing those certain maneuvers. So I'm using the whips to turn to the inside by lifting it up, and then I'm going to get it parallel to his face, and I'm really opening the door here to my left. So and he wants to touch the rope or the whip, that's fine. I'm not going to worry about that. But I'm just saying, please go this way. I'm shutting the door to the right. He's up against the fence, which should help me out. And then I'm just saying, go to the left. So for the hindquarter yield, I'm bending at the waist, and I'm going to use both whips. I'm going to have the one whip up in front of his face to kind of block that forward motion, and then the other whip pointing toward his hindquarters to push that hindquarter over. So I'll point that out again once I start asking him for that. But I'm just going to give him a minute. He's looking at me. I'll let him pause here, because I know the fence is helping me out here, but I'm just going to give him a minute to get used to that. And now he goes off. And that is the way I wanted him to go, so I'm not super worried about that. I'm asking for the hindquarter yield, so I'm bending, putting pressure toward his hindquarters with my black whip, and then I have the white one kind of up in front of his head. There he kind of swung his hips a little bit. And with that white whip, I was just blocking a little bit. So I like the 2-whip use. I've seen Mustang Maddie do it. She does an awesome job with it. I definitely like it for the Mustangs, or just for training in general, because I could add that steering in, and I really, really like that. So I definitely did not come up with that, but I'm just using it from her, because I really thought that was awesome. That was a nice hindquarter step. And you can tell he's very worried, because he's just grazing, like stress grazing, like trying to calm himself down. He's trying to go back down to that resting rate, and that's why he continues to graze, even though there's really not a whole lot of grass in there. I'm letting him just I'm rubbing him with the whip here, and just kind of trying to relax him a little bit. He shakes his head, blows his nose here, so that's nice. So he is calming himself, but I'm just trying to go nice and slow. I don't want anything crazy. I'm not going to chase him. I don't want to put so much pressure on that he's looking for an escape. This is a communication, so I'm not trying to force him to do anything. So far, I do like doing this without positive reinforcement. Okay, so I'm going to point out the draw toward me. And this is pretty much what I've been trying to do, but I want to point it out because the draw is a little bit separate than the look at me. So I'm going to back up and use those whips out to the side to kind of almost block, and kind of use like a funnel to draw him toward me. So it's slightly different. So they're going to be raised a little bit, and then I'm going to back up and like funnel him toward me. That's the drawing. But as I was saying, I like having just kind of communicating like this and not having the positive reinforcement. You can mix it up. Like, I think for the future, I will still add in the positive reinforcement. I'm still trying to play with that and how I'm going to add it in, but I think I'll have communicate with the negative reinforcement and then highlight the good parts with the positive reinforcement for as far as the whip round pen sessions are concerned, because I really have a good tool in the whips to communicate with him without producing a ton of fear. So I can do that and then really reward the good moments with the positive reinforcement, versus when I'm handling him it gets a bit difficult when I first was touching him and doing those kind of behaviors. It's much easier to pinpoint and to teach with just positive reinforcement because I'm so close to him. And like at first I'd have to click them for just touching them and then stroking them twice and then continue on. And that's a lot easier than using positive reinforcement for that. So I'm trying to figure out the certain things I want to do that for. So I'm just desensitizing with the whip here as I was talking about that. I'm just rubbing him on the side of the neck here, and he's used to that. We've already done that. We have previous videos where I'm desensitizing him to the whips. So I'm just taking a break and giving him something that he knows how to do. He shakes his head, he goes back to grazing. That's fine. So he already knows the desensitizing with the whips, so he feels pretty comfortable with it. If your horse doesn't already know it, you can add that in here too. It's up to you. I did this previously because I had him just like in his pasture or wherever. I was just kind of clicking him when he touched it, but I'm just trying to push that hindquarter over. So I followed him there and kept asking until he gave it to me, and then he stepped over. I'll release and step back. So he really has like a habit of just being like, I don't want to, or I'm afraid and I'm gonna leave. So I don't think it's necessarily I don't want to. He isn't really necessarily trying super hard at times. I think he's just like, scare me, leave. And he doesn't run away, but I don't like that he has a lot of leave in there, sort of try and work through that. But again, I'm just doing some desensitizing, letting him just hang out here. I'll rub him with my whips. And I just want him, while he's turned to facing me and he's looking at me, I want that to be a reward. So there's no pressure on him while he looks at me. He can just hang out, he can eat some grass, like nothing is going to be bad happening. And then he decides to leave. So this is what I'm talking about. He's not trying. I asked him, like all I did was pick up my whips, and he's like, nah, bye. Like he's like, no, I'm good. And he just kind of leaves. Instead of kind of sitting there like, okay, what is it that I want? And then leaving, he just was like, oh, bye. So he does have that fear in there. And it manifests itself in the walking away, or right here is the turning away. So I was trying to get his hindquarters move over, and he's just like, no, I'm going to leave. That was a better turn in face. So I'm just going to ask, there it goes. He steps over, but he's kind of doing like a side pass thing. So I'm going to try and go with him. So I have my black whip up to ask for the face to stop, and then I'm asking for the hindquarters with the white whip. So he took a step over and a step toward me, so I'm going to back up. And then I'm going to ask again to the other side. So I'm asking for the hindquarter yield with my black whip, which you can't really see, but the white whip is in my left hand. And then I'll release when he takes a step over. I try to zoom in, but I can't get it to move fast enough when he moves around the pen. So it's easiest this way. But so the white whip is in my left hand, and I'm asking for that hindquarter yield. And there he just kind of worries himself versus thinking through it. And I'm going to keep asking him and just kind of step in front. There we go. Till he comes around, faces me, and pushes that hind end away. So there was another example of that, was him just leaving and not trying. So again, I'm asking for a little bit of draw. I hadn't tossed my black whip up and was just asking for some movement. So here I'm asking him to draw toward me. There he turns in. I'll put my whips down and just relax. But previously I was asking him to move over, and he just kind of left instead. So I'm just going to keep asking and keep going with him until I get what I want, without scaring him, not chasing him, just going with him. So I'm giving him a little break here. Give him a minute to eat some grass. It's okay. Not a big deal. And then I'll shorten these breaks as I go too. As I progress with him in the round pen, he's not going to have this amount of time to just kind of hang out. I want him more focused on me as we go on. But for now, like, since he is worried, I'm going to give him that time to just kind of hang out for a little bit. So now I'm asking him to move over. He moved over for a second, so I'm just going to let him sit again. I'm just rewarding every little movement of his that's toward the correct way that I asked. So I'm asking again. So I'm just going to get him to go to my left here. And he stepped over with his hindquarters, but he hasn't picked up his head. He's just kind of stress eating down here, like, I'm not here. I'm fine. I'm just grazing. So here I'm asking him to push those hindquarters away again with my left stick here. There he goes. Good. And I really would like more hindquarter, and I want that head up. That's why I keep asking him. So he's kind of doing like a little sideways step. I keep asking until I get that head up, because he's just kind of saying like, you're not here, you're not here, you're not here. And I'm saying, no, let's pay attention and look at me. We had some draw. So for the draw, I'm just kind of using one whip toward the hind end of the horse to create some movement, and then I'm funneling it and channeling it down the 2 whips. So I'm creating it with one of them, usually a longer whip. The white one is a lunge whip, the black one is a driving whip. So with a longer one, I'll just kind of create some energy and move it toward his hind end to kind of push him forward, and then I'll lift my black whip to kind of guide him toward me, and then I'll step back. So that's what I was doing there. But I'm desensitizing him here, so he took a nice drawing step toward me, which is really nice because he doesn't really want to do that. So I'm just going over here, and I'm going to pet on his head and just relax with him for a second. And then he kind of loses interest and goes back to eating. So we'll go back to work here. But I just picked up my whips, and he's picked up his head. So he's got a little bit better attention than he did before. So I'll just rub him with my whip. There, I'll use my black whip and just gonna rub him on the head, do some desensitizing that he knows. Just let him hang out here for a little bit. I just want him standing and facing me to be a really good place. And he decides to leave again, that's all right. I'm gonna ask him to go forward though. So just ask him to go forward with both my whips. And there he kind of decided to draw in, which is nice. And then went to gray. So I'm just creating that energy like I was explaining earlier with my white whip, and then stepping back, I'm using my black whip up to kind of draw him toward me. There he goes, I'll put my whips down. See, he'll take a step and he'll immediately be like, oh, I gotta go. And he took that step to the side and decided to leave. So I'm just backing up and drawing him. That was good. And then I'll just let him stand for a second. I think the other horses are running around in the background or doing something. I'm not sure. But he still has that tendency to want to just kind of step off and leave. So I really want him to stay focused and confident in what he's doing. So he wants to leave again. So I'm going to ask him to move forward. There he pushed his hindquarters over. He at least faced me somewhat. I'll come in here and desensitize a little bit. I don't love that he continues to graze and like pretend I'm not there. That does taper off as we go, but it is interesting to see how much he did that back in the beginning when I filmed this video, because it's been a while I'm voicing over it, but it is interesting to see that. I do not recommend doing this on grass. It's going to be hard because you can see the amount of grass I have in here. It's not a lot, and he's very distracted, so definitely have a dirt place where you can work. There he stepped over nicely, so I'm just going to desensitize a little bit. Also definitely have round pen panels, strong round pen panels, because they've bumped into them a bit. They weren't too bad because I wasn't putting a ton of pressure on them, but definitely wouldn't feel safe doing this in wood, or definitely not some electric tape or anything like that. So I'm just going to ask for pressure here. I just stepped toward him and he decided to leave. So I'm just going to try and channel that. So I'm going to ask him to go forward because he really doesn't have a lot of draw unless he's going forward quicker. So he moved forward, and then I took it off, and he immediately goes to eat, and then I'll give him a quick break. There, he moved right off my whip, so that was nice. I'm going to have him go the other direction. Good. And so he's stopping and coming into the whips a little bit better. I picked up my left whip, and he turned to me right away, so that's getting better. So go back in and desensitize. Just let him hang out for a second. But I think maybe if I was using positive reinforcement, he'd be less wanting to eat the grass. So just a thought. But I'm asking for that hindquarter yield, and then I'm trying to get him to turn, and he just wants to go the opposite way that I ask. And so I'll just keep going. So I didn't try to run toward him. I'm just going parallel to him and then asking him to move over, go back the way he was going. So I'm trying to ask for the hindquarter yield. There we go. Very nice hindquarter yield. But he likes to do that, like spin away and go the other direction. So I'm just gonna go with him, correct him, go back to what we were doing. Not a big deal. Desensitize him a little bit. Just work on that. Every time he gets worried and leaves, I'm just like, no, you're fine. The whips aren't scary. And just rub him with it and make sure he's okay with them again. Because I'm trying to get him to understand that the whips are going to change your direction and they're going to move you, but they're not scary. It's just a stick. I'm not going to whip you with it or attack you with it. So there he decides to leave. That's all right. I'm just going to block him here. I have my left whip up. And I'm trying to push him forward and then back toward me. So I'm trying to draw him toward me again. Because every time he leaves, I'm just going to be like, nope, come back. Because I don't want to chase him too much. He's got a lot of sass there. So I was like, all right, well, let's go forward a little bit. So I don't want to chase him too much because I don't want every time he doesn't do something, he goes to run and that becomes a habit. But for the Mustangs, they're going to come back on his own, so I'll allow it. That's okay. For the Mustangs, they don't love going out and running around. This does not work on Arabians and thoroughbreds and some hot quarter horses and gaited horses and things like that. Going and running them around is just going to get them all wound up. And I'm sure that's true for some Mustangs as well. The two I have, they trot about a couple laps and they're like, okay, I'm done. Which is nice because you kind of can get your point across if you need to. See, he's like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to come back, which is nice. But I don't want to chase him off every time and then he thinks that's the answer. So you have to be careful with how often you use it. So I try to kind of balance it. So he wanted to trot off. So I'll either have him come back in and stand, or I'll have him go a little faster than he wanted to go. So like I'm asking him to canter here. He thinks that's pretty hard work. So as soon as I canter, he turns in. Or I'll just or if he decides to leave, I'll just bring him back and have him turn and face. So I try to do that and balance it out, but I definitely try to have him turn and face at least most of the time. So I step in front, he comes back, very good. I'll just let him rest while he's facing me because I'm trying to show him the correct answer, which I think would be helped if I had the positive reinforcement. There he stepped toward me and then decided, nah, I'd rather not. So I'm going to just draw him in. So he thinks maybe, oh, trotting around, running around is going to be the answer. And I was like, nope, we're going to come and you're going to face me. I'm just trying to ask for the hindquarter yield. He wants to step out of it. There he goes. Very nice. And I'll step back. So I just had my one whip up to kind of block his face and his forward movement. And then I bended the waist and I used that other whip toward his hindquarters. He stepped over. I'll step back and let him have a break. So again, I'm going to ask him for that hindquarter yield again. Step over. I'm trying to keep that one whip in front of his face. See how he bends and looks at me and then pushes over? Some horses are not gonna, they're gonna run through that. That's okay. But he works through that pretty well. And his isn't necessarily run through, it's that spin the other way and go away. So, but he's looking at me now, so he is getting better with the giving me two eyes and looking at me. And then he's turned away, but he didn't trot away. So that's something important to think about. There I did not ask him to trot on. I was asking him to go forward so he had enough energy to turn and face me. So he broke into the trot on his own, and then I was just asking him to go forward because when they're going really slow, they don't really have that much momentum to turn and face you. They're not going to turn and just stop, and they'll stop straight and not look at you. I want them to turn and do like a nice curve and then face you, and versus just stand there and be stiff because they're still in that freeze mode at that point, and I don't really want that. I want that hindquarter stepping across and the inside leg stepping over and getting that relaxation. So I'm going to sensitize him a little bit again to the whips, make sure he's cool with those. Bring in the whip again. I'm just rubbing the side of his neck here. Now take a step back, let him relax. He likes to shake his head and lick his lips afterward and kind of relax a little bit, so I'll let him do that. Well, then I'll go back, and there he kind of jumped a little bit, was a little worried about the stick. That's all right. I'll just keep rubbing until he relaxes, then take it away. And then he again relaxes and shakes his head. I'll bring back. I'm just doing nice approach from retreat with the stick here. So, if he were to run off, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. I would just go draw him back, and then I would just try approaching with the stick a little slower and a little further away, and then I would just build up from there. So then he decides to leave. I'm just going to ask him to draw in. So sticks up, he faces me, sticks down, and I'm just going to get in front of that drive line. So again, he wants to turn away and go the other way. There we go. As soon as he turns and faces me, sticks are down, and I stop asking. So I'm trying to get that hindquarter over. There we go. And get a couple of steps forward here, because he turns and faces. There we go. Nice little step. He turns and faces good. Like the first part was the first text I had on the screen was, I just want him to turn and look at me. That was the goal the whole time. So the next one I want to do is the draw part. So he looks at me, he moves his shoulders, he moves his hindquarters. Not exactly when I ask, but he's got the idea. And now I really want more of that draw, because he'd rather just run, and I want to talk him out of it. We're like, no, we're going to not do that. We're just going to think about it and draw toward me. So I'll let him hang out here, because he had some nice good steps of draw. So I want him to have a little break there. So just ask him over. That was really good. He moved his shoulders nicely, and I want him to draw. He did that inside turn on his own. So I'm just going to ask with my white whip here toward his hindquarters. There he draws in. I put my sticks down, then he leaves on his own. So I'm going to keep asking for that draw. There it is. That's why I wanted that a little bit faster. See, he was trotting there, and he kind of did a little turn off the round pen and trotted a couple steps toward me. That's what I wanted. You need a little bit of forward movement to do that. So when I'm saying I'm speeding him up to get to do the draw, that's what I'm talking about. So let him hang out again here for a minute. Desensitize him to my whips a little bit. In the same way, he stays good, so as soon as I walk toward him with the whip, he's calm with it, so then I'll touch him with it, and then I'll wait until he's relaxed, and then I'll take a step back. So I'm waiting until he blinks his eye or licks his lip, blows his nose, or like lowers his head. Usually they're only going to do like an eye blink. Like he probably isn't going to lower his head or blow his nose because he's not quite that relaxed, but I'm just going to wait until his eye blinks, or maybe his muscles loosen a little bit and they're not as tight. You can kind of see him like move a little bit, or even if he's real like almost shut down where like they'll just have their ears back and they're not moving or anything, I'll wait until an ear flicks and then I'll let go. So he's not being shut down. He's aware of the surroundings, and I'll let go from that too. So I'm gonna do that side of his body as well, and just kind of let him hang out, and then desensitize on his face with the stick. I'll take a step back because I want to do nice retreating too. So I'll go in there and desensitize him, then I'll back off, take away the pressure, just let him hang out, and then I'll ask him to do something else. Because then he just went right to grazing, so I was like, no, let's do something else. See how he saw the whip and didn't run through it? He stopped and turned. So that's good. He doesn't run through it, which is nice, but he likes to turn around instead. So just asking for forward movement with that white stick right here. It's lifted up. I'm trying to get his hindquarters to kind of come toward me and face me right there. Sticks go down. Good. And he's shaking his head and relaxing a little bit. I'm trying to ask again. He just decides to leave instead of draw toward me. So I'm asking. There we go. And as soon as he comes toward me, I'm backing up and lowering my sticks. So I think he's starting to get it. So I'm asking again for a little bit of draw, and I just try to put some hindquarter pressure to the left, and he just decides to leave instead of to the right. And I'm like, no, we're not going to leave. So I just walk parallel to him. That's the good thing of the round pen, and just draw him toward me again. And then he immediately shakes his head and licks his lips. He's relaxing again. But yeah, it's going to be really hard if you don't have a round pen, because you can't get in front of him like I do, and I just walk like a line in the middle of the round pen. It's going to be really hard in a bigger space than that. There he feels his hindquarters nicely there. I was just asking him to face up, but I will take that. There we go. There's some nice steps right there. Lots of relaxing there. So he's eating the grass again. So I'm just asking for him to move over. There, he's not trotting off, so that's good. There, he turns and faces. Very nice. So he's not being quite as reactive right now. I'm just trying to ask him his shoulders over here. And instead of doing something, he's just trying to look, and I'm just trying to move. There we go. I'm just kind of waving my whip a little bit just to get that shoulders unlocked. and then he moves over and comes forward, so that's really nice. He didn't just take off that time. So let him eat grass for a second, and then I'll ask him to do something else. I try not to go too long in here. He's in here for about 35 minutes. I don't want to chase him around in here for an hour. He doesn't have a super long attention span, so I don't want to do too much with him. Like right now today, we're just working on those like 4 things, so I just want to get that really solid before I start adding stuff. But I also don't want to be too much pressure, and then he doesn't want to listen to anything I say. He wants to just run away or shut down. So I just want him to be nice and engaged and participating in what we're trying to do. He already picked his head up and looked at me on his own, so I'll back up. Very nice. He just goes back to grazing, but at least he paid attention to me and looked at me on his own versus me having to ask him off the grass again. So again, I'm giving him longer breaks in the beginning than I do later on. He gets shorter breaks, and then he'll stop eating the grass as well. So he pretty much stays his attention on me now, so that's nice. But this is where he's at the moment, and then he kind of wants to wander over here. But at least he's not running to the gate now and like standing there, calling to his friends, looking out, neighing, trying to jump the fence. He's not doing any of those behaviors, so that's very good. I don't really want it to escalate up to that. Like the first couple times he did in the beginning of the video, he wanted to kind of trot over, went to the gate, look out. That was all it was, so that's pretty good. So hopefully that'll be a sign of what he'll be when he's ridden, which I think it will be. I don't think he's going to be super connected to his friends and needing to go back. And I base all of the training off of that as well, so. Just give him a nice long break here, and then I'll ask him for a couple more things and then be done with him. All right, so I'm gonna go over and ask him to move here. Good, so I stepped up to him and he took one step toward me versus like turning away. So that's really nice. So I'm just gonna come up to him, rub on his face. I wanna end on a nice good note. Make friends with him again. Like, I'm not gonna chase you, nothing scary is happening. We're just kinda hanging out together and just like normal. If he leaves, that's fine, it's not a big deal. I'm just gonna step in front. There he does a nice turn, comes toward me. Leaves again, but at least he was listening. So, I come in front again, very nice. Just wanna make friends, end on a nice quiet note here. Very good. So I've been giving him a snack inside the round pen, so he lives over to the right-hand side. And both the Mustangs, at this point, the round pen's not the most fun place to be in because he wants to work there. So I'm trying to change that for them, and I bring a little bit of grain and put it in this bowl, and they get that on the way in because they're not halter broke, and they get it on the way out to just kind of have a nice little ending and something good for him to remember, so he'll want to come back in. But I'm just trying to make it a good experience for him.